a lot of people are talking about climate change. They've been talking about climate change for a very long time. I've been hearing about climate change since I was in middle school, and I heard about the ozone layer and all this stuff. This entire climate change cult, this eco-fascist cult, is just absolutely insane, and the entire ideology has ran rampant throughout the world, and it's just stupid and really crazy and insane, dangerous, evil, and destructive. They'll sit there and they'll be like, oh, look, droughts in America. Look, this huge heat wave in Europe. Oh my gosh, look at all this terrible weather. It's awful. It's all just evidence and proof of climate change. It's evidence and proof of climate change, and this is why we need to get rid of cows and stop eating meat and just live a vegan diet, live on a vegan diet and eat like crickets and leaves all day or something like that. This is why this is stupid, all right? This is one of the reasons why this is stupid. There have always been natural disasters. There have always been droughts. There have always been there has always been unusual weather. There's always been weird weather that's very destructive. In the 1930s, there were numerous natural disasters. So, for example, from 1928 into 1930-31, there was a terrible drought in China. And then in 1931, in the winter of 1931, there was a lot of cold weather. And there was a lot of ice in the mountainous region around the Yangtze River. And then in the springtime, there was a lot of heavy rains, and all of the ice melted, and so you had flooding from the Yangtze River. And this led to terrible floods around the Yangtze River that led to the deaths of literally over 3 million people. All right, not 3,000 people, not 300,000 people, over 3 million people in China died as a result of this flooding that took place in 1931. So you had droughts beginning in 1928, and then in 1931, in the winter of 1931, you had a very, very harsh winter, lots of snow and ice that melted. And then the melting of that ice and that snow combined with heavy rains led to the flooding of the Yangtze River, overflow from the Yangtze River, which led to extremely devastating floods that led to the deaths of over 3 million people. And then in I think it was in 1925, in the United States, there were a series of tornadoes that hit the Midwestern and Southern United States, and those killed over 700 people. I think 750-something people were killed by these tornadoes in the 1920s. And then in 1932, there were a series of tornadoes that hit the Deep South, and those also killed hundreds of people. More than 330 people were killed by those tornadoes that hit the American South in 1932. So imagine if such destructive weather were to happen from the, let's say, late 2010s and into the into the 2020s, right? So let's say you had terrible droughts in the late 2010s, and then you had terrible flooding in China in 2021 that kills millions of people, and then you have these terrible droughts that hit America, and also I almost forgot to mention this. In 1930, you had the Dust Bowl, and the Dust Bowl killed literally around 7,000 people. So let's say in the late 2010s, you have droughts in China, and then you have a terrible floods. You have terrible flooding that happens in 2021 in China. Millions of Chinese people are killed, and then you have tornadoes that in like I don't know, let's say 2015 that hit the Midwest and the American South, and hundreds die. And then in 2022 you have tornadoes that hit the South and hundreds more die. And let's say you have a dust bowl in 2020, that begins in 2020, and it leads to the deaths of thousands of people. And also, around 500,000 Americans were left homeless thanks to the Dust Bowl. So let's say you have 500,000 Americans left homeless by a Dust Bowl in the 2020s. You don't think they would be blaming it on carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, too much methane? You don't think they would be blaming cows today? They would be. They would be saying, "Oh, it's climate change and all this crap." But in the late 1920s, you had terrible droughts in China. Or in the 1930s, you had flooding in China, tornadoes in the United States that kills hundreds and hundreds of people. Close to 1,000 people if you include the tornadoes that hit America in the mid-20s and the tornadoes that hit America in 1932. And then you had the Dust Bowl. Imagine if all this stuff happened in our own time. You don't think they'd be blaming that crap on climate change? We'd say, "Oh, it's climate change. Oh, flooding in China, Dust Bowl in America, droughts, tornadoes hitting the United States, the Midwest and the southern United States." They would be blaming that shit on climate change, and they would be saying we got to blame the cows. Get rid of the cows. It's insane, guys. Yesterday, I was reading about agriculture in medieval Northern Europe. There were times in medieval England when you had a huge, heavy drought every 10 to 12 years in medieval England. If that were happening today, they would be saying, "Oh my God, look at this strange weather. Look at this strange weather. Droughts in England." And if the Dust Bowl and the droughts in China and the flooding in China and the tornadoes in the American Midwest and South were happening today, imagine the newsreels. Imagine the newsreels today. Droughts in China, destructive, devastating floods around the Yangtze River. Tornadoes in the deep south and in the Midwest, leading to the deaths of 1,000 people. A dust bowl in the Great Plains, leading to the deaths of around 7,000 Americans, leaving 500,000 American citizens homeless. This is the result of greenhouse emissions and cow farts. Cow shit is causing all of the climate change. Let's blame the cows, everybody. Stop eating the hamburgers because cow shit is killing you. Don't you understand? It's complete insanity. It's a cult. This Greta Thunberg girl, she's just some Swedish girl. She's following the legacy of her Nazi ancestors, okay? They want to impose policies of population control and starvation. That's what this is going to lead to. If we follow the eco-fascist, we will have starvation from food shortages. Sri Lanka was taken over by some eco-crazy agenda. I think it was the president or prime minister, I don't remember. There was the leader of Sri Lanka, I forgot the person's name, who wanted to implement and impose these green policies. They wanted to impose, organic farming and organic farming, everybody. Let's do and then you have these lunatics who are like, well, I have an organic garden in my backyard. I think the whole world should do this. Organic agriculture is okay if you want to do it in your backyard garden, okay? Or maybe if you have a small organic farm that you have as a business, it's kind of like a side hustle, and you're doing it sort of as to make some money, but it's not, the entire system of agriculture, right? It doesn't replace the entire system of agriculture. It's fine, right? You go to the store, you want to buy organic, you want to feel better about yourself, whatever, okay? It's a little bit more expensive. But the idea of replacing the entire conventional system of agriculture with organic methods is absolutely insane. It is completely crazy, because with organic farming methods, you need way more land than you would with conventional farming methods, modern day agricultural systems, you need way more land. And the reason why you need way more land is because you have less yield. When you utilize organic gardening methods, you have less yield, as opposed to using chemical fertilizers and also chemical pesticides and fungicides. Because if you know anything about growing food, right? If you've tried gardening, you know something about growing food. Bottom line, because gardening is like a microcosm of farming. So if you have tried gardening, you know damn well that when you utilize organic gardening methods, organic methods of growing food, you're not getting as much yield as you would get if you were to use chemical fertilizers. Plus, if you don't use pesticides, you're going to be dealing with pests, insects. Not just insects, though, but you're also going to be dealing with rabbits and other types of rodents, right? Rodents, like things like mice, rats, groundhogs, like all these types of pests, critters, little animals will destroy your food. They will come and eat all your stuff. Trust me, I know from personal experience. Now, when you are utilizing, like if you're trying to feed billions of people, you can't take those types of risks. So you use chemical fertilizers to guarantee that you're going to be getting a huge bountiful harvest. You also have to use chemical pesticides and fungicides because you're going to be dealing with insects. Insects will come and eat all your stuff. They don't give a damn about humans, okay? They're going to come eat all your stuff. Nature is ruthless. Everybody knows this, okay? Now, if you have rains, you also have the threat of fungus because fungus thrives in moisture. It thrives with moisture. That's why when you have like summer rains, you have the risks of fungus destroying your stuff. And fungus, things like blight and other types of bacterial and fungus attacks on plants can wipe out entire crops. If you try to grow tomatoes, if you have tried to grow tomatoes, you probably have experienced bacterial blight, which makes your leaves all yellow and it destroys your plants. Funguses will destroy your plants. So you have to then utilize different types of chemicals to ameliorate these problems. So if you're trying to feed billions of people, you cannot take that risk. You can't take that risk. You can't sit there and say, well, we're going to have a risk. If we get some blight, if we get some fungus attacks on our plants, if we get pests and rodents, who cares? Because it's all about going organic, man. It's all about going organic. Because, Mother Earth, Gaia, and every time you kill a cow, Gaia cries or some bullshit like that. So you have to do all the measures to make sure that you're going to have a guaranteed bountiful crop that's going to give you a living as a farmer. It's also going to make sure that you have that, everybody's going to be able to eat. Everyone's going to go to the store and find the stuff that they want to purchase. You cannot take these types of risks, right? There was a disease that hit the potatoes in Ireland, the potato farms in Ireland, and that led to what? The potato famine of Ireland. How many people died? What, 1 million Irish people died because of the Irish potato famine? There's a reason why all these Irish people came to America. There's a reason why you have so many Americans with Irish last names, because of the potato famine. And that was caused, I believe, by some kind of bacterial or fungus that wiped out their crops in Ireland. Plus, you also had the British, which said, oh, you have to give those potatoes to us. You're Irish, so you can die. Sri Lanka tried to impose organic methods to save the planet. Guess what happened? 6 months after they began to implement this policy, their rice yield dropped by 20%. Just 6 months after utilizing the organic method of growing rice, their rice yield dropped by 20%. What did that lead to? Food shortages, and the prices went up to the roof. People rioted in Sri Lanka, and they overthrew the government. It's completely freaking insane. It's so insane that people want to say, organic. It's so easy to sit there from your Silicon Valley, multi-million-dollar house and sit there and say, oh, organic, that's good, organic. Organic is okay if it's just some stuff that you personally want to buy from the grocery store. It's not okay if you want to feed billions of people. It's such utter bullshit, guys. The whole thing is a cult. They want to force us to get rid of cows. They want to make us all eat meat. They want to make us all stop eating meat. There's an entire cult of vegans that want to make us do this. I don't know if they're going to succeed. I hope they don't succeed. But remember what happened in the Russian Revolutionary government when the Bolsheviks took over. They said all the land must be distributed to the peasant class. All these kulaks and these landowners are evil. Yeah, how many people died from starvation because of these policies in communist Russia? It's so stupid. It's evil. And who are the people pushing environmentalism? Oh, it only happens to be the people who believe in Malthusianism. And who was Malthus? What was John Malthus? Who was Malthus? Some Anglican minister. He wasn't even an atheist, guys. Some Anglican lunatic came out and said, "Oh, we have to bring the population down because of food shortages." And that in turn influenced Charles Darwin, because Charles Darwin said, the people who starve are the people who have the inferior genetics. People who survive must be the ones who have superior genetics. This leads to evolution. And who was one of the guys who influenced the whole the whole idea of, oh, there's too many people? Paul Ehrlich, who happens to be an environmentalist. Surprisingly, ironically enough, I believe his parents, or one of his parents, survived the Holocaust, yet the guy wants to implement another Holocaust by telling people there's too many people in the world, and that's bad. Well, maybe he should start with himself. Maybe he should start by purging himself. Maybe, there would be one less asshole in the world. It's so evil. It's so evil. It's amazing. We had way more deaths from natural disasters in the 1930s, 20s, early 1900s. Way more people died. Hundreds of thousands of people would die on average every single year from natural disasters. In our own time, the chance of dying from a natural disaster is close to zero. The chance of dying from a natural disaster in our own time is close to zero. Why? Because we have modern day preventative measures that will preclude massive death counts due to natural disasters. But we're sitting here thinking it's the end of the world because you have all these, and this has been going on for decades. When I was in high school, we had Katrina in Louisiana. And every single day we heard about, Katrina, climate change. The reason why people died in Katrina was because they didn't have an efficient system of flood prevention. They had these I don't know what they call them, levees or something like that, and they weren't efficiently established. But the same thing with these fires in California. The way that you stop these fires from lasting so long is by cleaning out all of the dry wood debris on the forest floors. That's the way you make sure these fires don't last too long. When you have too much debris on the forest floors, these fires last too long. So instead of doing some stupid environmentalist eco-fascist bullshit like, we got to bring the population down, get rid of all the cows, we can clean the forest floors. We can give people more air conditioning, more AC to prevent heat wave deaths. We can, prevent floods as we're doing right now. It's complete insanity. It's such bullshit, guys. These Dutch farmers are absolutely right. They want to sit there and force the farmers to bring their cow numbers down by 1/3. Who the hell are they? It's the farmers that feed us. It's not these vegan lunatics that feed us. It's not these environmentalist eco-fascists that feed us. It's the farmers that feed us. So let the farmers do their jobs and stay out of it. It's so retarded, guys. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.